Hey up, I'm TheWonkyProphet. That's Clem, that's his bench, that's his view. And this is a commission I'm busy painting. Paintbrushes galore. This is how far I got so far. See how I did it? By watching on. Bye. So I've been asked to paint this little scene for a commission. Now the guy in the painting, in the photo there, this guy called Clem, and he would walk by the side of Lough Neagh every day, and then he asked the farmer if he could put a bench by the roadside so he could sit and enjoy the view. So I'd been asked to kind of paint a sort of representation of not necessarily the view that Clem was looking at, but the kind of the area in which he was sat. So I took a load of reference photos and came up with this as the final sketch. So what I did was kind of really worked on this forced perspective, which kind of allowed the geography of the place to sort of wrap around. So the bench would usually be quite far back from the loch side, overlooking, and the river would be on the left of the bench, kind of weaving its way down to the loch. So by doing this forced perspective, it kind of wraps everything around a little bit and just kind of allowed more of an abstract representation of realism rather than realism. So you see here I'm sketching in kind of that horizon line, and then also building in the river here. But it was an interesting commission to take on. The guy was very happy with the sketch and said I'd kind of really portrayed what he had wanted, which I'm quite happy about. But it was fun to come up with. Just about got that sketch in there now. A few minor changes from the smaller sketch. I didn't have enough room on this side to get any of this kind of detail in, and I really wanted to get this fence post in. So this is an old photo, it has that on, but the new, well, how it is now, there's a birdhouse being placed in back there to kind of, I believe, replace this signpost, or at least it looks like that on Google Maps. So I wanted to kind of replicate a little bit of that detail and also pull this flower bed in. So yeah, it was really fun to paint, and I just kind of built this perspective line in, and then just started building everything in on that, starting from the trees right in the back, coming to this kind of tree in the center, which is here. So this is the kind of line. You can imagine these took photos, and then extend the river around to create a shore edge, simulating kind of the shore of Lough Neagh. So it's a kind of abstract idea of where this guy would chill and sit and what he would see, kind of looking out over the lake, the river by his left with the tree lines and kind of the hedgerows and things like that, and then obviously sat with the flower beds around where he is. So yeah, I'm quite happy with it. I fiddled quite a bit on the actual figure. I'm happy with the proportions. I'm happy with the weight on the shoulders. What I'm not 100% happy with is this right leg. I think the weight needs a little bit of adjusting for it to read correctly. And this foot was just like, oh, I just had loads of trouble with it, but I'm gonna leave that for now because I'm getting sort of 95% happy with that. And what I want to do, I've been looking at a Gauguin picture here, which I really like. I really like how he has kind of grouped all these kind of greens into very sort of obvious shapes. So I've been building these kind of like structural lines in, trying to just follow the perspective to kind of trying to give a bit of sense of like kind of where his foot would be and the weight of the foot. So I think I need to bring it down a bit, but and then just kind of following these lines down, and it's starting to create these kind of like shapes that I can follow with the grasses, and I'm hoping to try and do something similar to this. I really like this. I think it'll work well. Put a bit of a sunshine in the top because I'm thinking we can have some like kind of yellow lights shining in on the trees and coming down a little bit into the river and on the shoreline, and just kind of bring a bit more colour in on this side up to the oranges on the shoreline, you know, through the blues and oranges and then into all the greens, and then we're going to have kind of woods and stuff on the bench and bring it back to the kind of orange tones and the wooden tones, and then back up to our blues in the sky. So yeah, the kind of the blue's going to really sweep around this way. If we have more of a yellow end up here, and then we're going to get yellow and oranges sweeping through the through the pavement. So it's going. I really enjoy putting it in. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice. We picked a nice size to work on. It's 60 by 90 centimeters, and it's as you can see, I can sort of do it all in one arm stroke. It was very fluid, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So I'm going to get on with mixing some greens and just starting to get a few of these little bits in and just start to construct a few things and just keep with the perspective and just start colouring in. Here I have basically just mixed up a couple of foundational greens, and we're just working really loose, dragging the paint quite thin over the canvas and just getting some very basic shapes in. As you can see, I'm kind of loosely following the sketch in blue there, and then I'm sort of just putting in kind of like, I just want some earth tones along the shoreline. None of these colours necessarily need to be set, or they're just kind of giving me a little bit of direction where I want to put things. Oh yeah, I got rid of them. I'd done the sketch, and I think I'd done a session of painting, and the pose was just niggling me for a good 2.5 days, I think, and I kept thinking I'll just plow on and I'll make some changes further along the line, but really getting a good foundation in means everything else is a lot easier. As you can see, I think the camera ran out when I was doing it, the battery ran out. I filled my phone up with footage, but you can see the new sketch in there. And the guy was a lot happier with it, or seemed a lot happier with it. Said I'd really got kind of the feeling, or a good representation, and that he's just chilling and, you know, viewing the nature in front of him. So I was quite pleased that I'd done that. Like I say, everything, it's a lot easier to just kind of paint in when you know where you're going with the line and you know where you need to be with the line, rather than thinking, oh, I need to adjust something, or I need to play about with things. It also meant that I could just sort of get on painting without thinking that there was still bits of sketch to do. I really try to put that horizon line in strong. That's what I'm doing here, putting the kind of lighter shades of the sky right along the horizon line. Blending a few up in there, but I need to keep that forced perspective very strong. Painting at night, possibly vampiric. I'm still awaiting the results though. But he is called Dr. Dracula, the guy that I've seen, so I think he might be a little bit biased. Just working the blues in here. Working the sky. Try and keep that forced perspective going. You'll see a little zoom out here, so you'll see what I've got a curve from top left corner to the top right corner. I'm trying to go around that tree in the center. I'm just trying to keep everything very, very forced and very wide. So as I work, mix colour for each bit, work on the ground, then work on the sky, then work on the river, etc. I start mixing little piles up. So I only start with the blue, magenta and yellow that you can see in the corners of the palette, and then there's white on the right there. So as I'm painting, I'll paint like the sky in, and then I'll separate the colours out, clean the palette down, and then I'll start to work, on a separate section. But what happens is I'll start to be able to use the colours that I've already mixed. So like for example the river, because it's kind of like a blue-green, I'm just going to start mixing the blues that I've got with that green at the top, and then the two kind of oranges and browns that were on the right side of that, they're my sort of earth tones. So as you see here, I'm kind of bringing in a few greens. I'm going to start bringing in a few of the oranges, the earth tones. Ultimately I'm going to brush over these with the blue, but it will blend in together. I think I mentioned this a little bit later on in the chat bit. But yeah, the palette grows over time, and then by the time I've got everything in, I've got about, sort of 9 to 12 piles of colour that then create the overpass layer. So when I go in with the thicker paint and I start building opacity and adjusting values, so just filling that river in. You can see I just mixed up a few bits. Oh, and these are my dogs. So that little one there that was just shot off, she's 9 months old. Straight in the other field, past that tree line. But her border collie herding instinct is on another level. Absolute another level. She's a mad little dog. That's the blue sections in, sky in, river in. Start putting all these little bits and pieces in around, so like they'll end up like kind of reflections off the shore side and the hedges, and bringing these in. Really interesting, I was putting orange stripes in. It was in this colour, at the top there, top left, and then pretty much going direct over with this blue, which is a bit of this mixed with a bit of this mixed with a bit of this. Go direct over the orange. so kind of blue over orange, it was creating all these lovely sort of green shades. Look like kind of like algae and sort of shoreline and like rocks peeking through and whatnot. Just try to simulate that kind of shallow water. And then I worked quite strong on putting this cloud line in and the horizon line. I forgoed the sun because I wouldn't have been able to get this lovely kind of stretched perspective effect as easily. I'm very pleased with that. So now I believe I'm going to start working kind of on the horizon line and down. I might start in with this back triangle. Maybe do some stuff on this side, or start on this back triangle and then work greens and grasses, because I'll have some greens mixed. But I'll see how it goes over this session. But I'm very happy with it. It is flowing off the brush very nicely. Getting that back corner filled in, and then this is starting to work on the little shapes I was talking about earlier, the galgan bit. I split the grassy section up into a load of kind of very loose, almost triangle shapes, and then I mixed up 2 or 3 piles of greens, I think. And kind of like dark and light versions of each of those. And it's just a case of building up the shapes. Now all these brush strokes are going to be, they can be worked on top of an adjusted layer, so they're not necessarily the final thing. It's more just about getting the form in and getting just those rough colour blocks. As you can see, I'm just starting to see a few greens there on the palette, but I'm just starting to like build up a couple of darker sections, a couple of lighter sections, and then join them all up with these 3 little brush strokes. I'm using the brush quite freely here, very much holding it at the tip, or the end, sorry, and just keep the work quite loose at this point. I think at this point, it was about 1 AM at this point, so I was thinking about starting to wrap up. But I was very happy with the progress I've made. The paint's really starting to flow and come together quite nicely. There's been no issues with it, other than that change in the sketch. But I'm very pleased that I did that. You can see here how those little sections are building up. But yeah, until next time.